Welcome to the Hanif Bismi show. This episode, we talk about growing fascism and future of India. The modern India became a new republic on 15th August 1947 by gaining independence from the British colony. India is the second most populous country and the most populous democracy in the world. A diverse nation with multi-ethno-linguistic coexisting comprising of most of the world's religions. India has the second largest Muslim population in the world, and they constitute the largest minority religious group. Since Gandhi's assassination, Indian nationalism has been gradually making its way through Indian institutions. In 1991, RSS launched itself into the public eye, flaunting the demolition of 550-year-old Babri Masjid, a Muslim place of worship and a national heritage. The apathy of secular parties, inaction of Indian security agencies, and the incapability of judiciary facilitated the demolition of the ancient mosque. And the bloodshed that followed against Muslims throughout India. Today, India has lost its secular credentials and identity and fallen into right-wing ideology. The RSS ideology has transformed Indian institutions by infiltration into all government agencies. The result is crime against minorities, particularly Muslims, journalists, activists, and women has greatly increased. The victims do not get justice because perpetrators do not get charged. Instead, the culprits are glorified by media and supported by politicians. And again, 2019, the people elected for the second term the BJP government. The current government's over-privatization, new anti-Muslim citizenship law, anti-farmers law, and growing unemployment and inflation, leading India into an unstable future. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Amaresh Misra. Mr. Amaresh Misra is an internationally renowned historian. He authored several books and a scriptwriter and a politician based in Uttar Pradesh, India. On behalf of 5 News and Hanif Bismi Show, we welcome Mr. Amaresh Misra. He challenged the RSS with a new narrative of 1857 nationalism and Hindu Sanat Dharma. He also redefined anti-imperialism by including the anti-British role of Islam in the Indian subcontinent. He talks about the historic political alliance of Sanat Dharma and Islam in contemporary terms. He also an activist currently on anti-farmers law and protest on farmers protest as well. So once again, we welcome and we thank you, Mr. Misra, for your time to come on Hanif Bismi Show.
My pleasure.
So I would like to further go ahead with this conversation. Indian fascism got political momentum after the demolition of 550-year-old Babri Masjid in 1991. As I said, secular Congress led by then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao was in power. He had been an RSS worker member in 1930s, and he failed to stop post-Babri Masjid violence. Do you think, Mr. Misra, the relationship between Congress and RSS is fluid? Why didn't they take action to stop the destruction of Babri Masjid and violence after
that? First, I would like to thank Hanif Bhai for inviting me to this show. My best wishes to all the audience there in Australia, and a pleasant, I think it's late evening there, so pleasant evening to all, which actually is a very important one. And yes, there was always a right, and there still is, I think, right wing in the Congress, but under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, when Mahatma Gandhi was there, because he himself used to call himself a Sanatani Hindu, and he was strongly allied with Muslims, and he always spoke up on injustices against minorities. But he was a very staunch Hindu. So RSS was not able to kind of penetrate the Congress till Gandhiji was alive. Then after him, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel died in 1950. Patel had banned the RSS after the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, because RSS was also accused of conspiring or of an act of hate, which led to the murder of Mahatma Gandhi. After that, Jawaharlal Nehru, he was a leftist, he was a Fabian socialist, and he took a very strong anti-RSS stand. So, till these two were there, RSS was pushed to the margins immediately after independence. Then we had a constitution. RSS initially didn't believe in the constitution, but then they got banned, and then they gave an undertaking, and they actually begged for mercy, literally, saying that they will respect the constitution. So they were marginalized till Pandit Nehru's death, which happened in 1964. And after that, there was a period of instability. Lal Bahadur Shastri became the prime minister. He was just there for 1.5 years. India saw two wars. One during the Nehru era, the Indo-China War, and then the Indo-Pakistan War in 65. Then, till the emergence of Indira Gandhi in 1971, this whole period between 1964 and 1971, this gave RSS the breathing space to rise politically. Now it is working under working through BJP, which is a political party. At that time, it was called Bharatiya Janasangh. That was political wing of RSS. But Bharatiya Janasangh, if you see, was never able to get more than 5. The maximum, I think, they got about 5 to 7% of votes in various elections. So this was there, and their vote share either dipped or just marginally got increased. It was only in 1967 elections where Congress won the majority, but Janasangh it performed. It gave a good performance, and its vote share also jumped. Like it became close to, between 10 to 15%. But again, 1971, when Indira Gandhi won the elections, and she took a strong socialist anti-RSS stand. She was in alliance with the communists of India. So again, RSS was marginalized in 1970. And then the emergency was imposed, and which led to the defeat of Congress in 1977. And in 1977, Bharatiya Janasangh merged in with other political parties, and it formed the Janata Party. And so, but even in the Janata Party, RSS, the Bharatiya Janasangh, which had merged in the Janata Party, was not the main party. The main party was the Socialists and Congress O and the Swatantra Party and other forces. Yet the anti-Congress, India's first anti-Congress government that was formed in 1977, had two RSS members, Lal Krishna Advani and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the foreign minister, and Lal Krishna Advani was the information and broadcasting minister. And it was from that time onwards, 1977. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was, a bit kind of a different, he was more in the Congress mode. But Lal Krishna Advani, he started infiltrating or, placing his people in the press because he was the information and broadcasting minister. And it was at that time, those 3 years between 1977 to 1980, that RSS actually got a toehold in the Indian system. But those 3 years, they were able to plant a lot of forces inside the Indian bureaucracy. Some young journalists who would play a critical role in the 90s when the Mandir, when the Babri Masjid Ram Janmabhoomi dispute emerged. and so at that time they played a crucial role. So seeds which were planted by, especially by Lal Krishna Advani in 1977 and by the RSS, which got some leeway those 3 years, they mature later. In 1980, Indira Gandhi came back to power. We had the Punjab problem. Then we had the Operation Blue Star. Indira Gandhi assassinated. Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister. Again, by then, BJP had been formed in 1980. And but BJP got just 2 seats in 1984 elections, which where Rajiv Gandhi won a historic mandate. So, but after that, if you see, it was some policies of Rajiv Gandhi who was trying to, he was trying to, because this Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid issue, this started in 1948 itself, and this some idols were inside what was then, and the issue was in court. It was a dead issue, but Rajiv Gandhi sort of revived the issue by opening the locks. It was to basically, because he had this inkling, I think, that the BJP will use this issue. So his purpose was to resolve this issue through talks or through mediation. And he was, but then Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in 1991. Narasimha Rao became the prime minister, and it was during Narasimha Rao's tenure where Lal Krishna Advani, he took out the second Rath Yatra, and that Rath Yatra reached Ayodhya, and the Babri Masjid was demolished. And Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. Kalyan was the minister of UP back then. So yes, I mean, I would say that in the absence of leadership, Congress definitely deviated to the right. They could have, Congress government of 1991 could have prevented the demolition of the Babri Mosque, and especially Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, he could have prevented the demolition of the Babri Mosque. There was definitely some understanding between him and the BJP, because but then we should also realize that Congress was it was headless at that time. I mean, in the sense that it lacked the leadership of the Nehru Gandhi family, which had given it a secular reputation. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it's give a big chronological information about from the 1947 to today. So thank you very much for your knowledge. And there is a similarity in the history of India in 1990s, as we explained, with that of Germany of 1920 to 1933. Indian opposition parties were unable to stop RSS politically. Was it because RSS had already infiltrated into the opposition parties and police forces? I think you already covered that, my things. Anything else you have to add? Yes.
But yeah, so basically, so 3 years, 1977 to 1980, when there were 2 BJP leaders who were they later became BJP. BJP was not there at the time. But the 2, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Lal Krishna Advani, who had trained under, who were like RSS trained people, between them more like Lal Krishna Advani, he was able to kind of place the infiltrators, and that infiltration started showing true colors in the 1990s, and it was found, but that large section of the Indian establishment and especially the security forces, was somehow complicit in the demolition of the Babri Mosque. It was never really acknowledged in all the inquiries and all their brief too was not. It was. This was never their brief that to look into the larger conspiracy. They just limited their role to whether the masjid was demolished as whether it was planned and whether it was demolished by the BJP. But the larger issue was never addressed, and this is a fact. So we still have this thing where actually the true reasons and the true conspiracy behind the demolition of Babri Mosque has yet to, it hasn't
So,
come out as yet. Yeah, and
yeah,
and recently the court also acquitted everyone accused, including Rakesh Advani and others. So this whole thing, I totally concur that there was a larger conspiracy.
Thank you. In Modi's first term, 2014 to 2019, attacks intensified on Muslims and Christians and other minorities, such as Dalit and others. Muslims were lynched in the name of cow, and this was to further polarization, and people elected him for another term. Is this a direct indication that India is totally moving towards fascism? As a journalist, as an activist, how do you observe these happenings around you?
No, actually, India is definitely moving towards something which is much more sinister, which actually also, in a way, is going to change the character of the Indian Constitution. This we are all seeing and observing as we are talking, because the situation is such that there was a government from 2014 to 2019. That government, it didn't tamper in a very explicit manner with the constitution, but it started eroding the institution. It started giving the court suddenly started giving judgments in favor of the right wing. There were many people of the right wing who were accused of terrorism. Many of them were and they were in jail, but bail was granted to them easily, although they were under in jail under heinous crimes. Mob lynching in the name of cow of Muslims, which had never happened before 2014. I mean, there might have been some one or two odd cases, but as a trend, this was never there. So it became the trend. Then there was this message which was sent out that the law is not equal for Hindus and Muslims. That Muslims, if they commit some a crime, then the law treats them harshly. If Hindus commit a crime, they can get away lightly. So this was this kind of a message. So imagine all this is happening, and yet the constitution has not been tampered with. The basic electoral processes are very much there, but the election commission acts in a very partisan manner. The judiciary doesn't intervene when it should. The bureaucracy acts in a partisan manner. So it's a new form of fascism. It's more like democratic fascism, or formal, maintaining the democratic sheen. I mean, we still have not been able to kind of theorize this trend and come out with all, someone calls it postmodernist fascism of this age. So India is definitely moving towards a situation where the contradiction between the practice of this present government, which violates the Indian Constitution, and the theory, which is the Indian Constitution, which is more than a rule book. It is a statement of the philosophy and the ideology of the Indian state, and it is enshrined. And that ideology is enshrined in certain articles, like Article 14, 15, 19, and where freedom of religion and secularism and basic freedom of speech, and all those basic rights are there. So we are waiting, and we want to see that how at what point will this government, which is in power since 2014 and which got re-elected in 2019, when is this clash going to mature? I mean, where it will be forced to do something like what Hitler did. You see, this is the difference. Hitler and Mussolini, they, as soon as they came to power, they kind of dispensed with in their own time, but like Hitler did it quickly. They dispensed with formal democratic institutions, and then they were they ruled as open dictators and fascists. But BJP has been, in that sense, they have taken a different route. Means long-term subversion of institutions, maintaining all the whole democratic facade and skeleton and everything, and yet infusing a new kind of spirit or a new kind of alteration in the whole system. So, but at the same time, one must say that in the 2019 verdict is again a bit suspicious, not because of just because of tampering of EVMs, which is an issue in India, but even otherwise, because Rahul Gandhi, who is the the main opposition leader in Congress, he is on record and he said that basically to have a free and fair election, and this he said after 2019 when BJP won, and he said that to have free and fair election, you need a free press, you need a free judiciary, you need an impartial election commission. So he was basically hinting towards a state where these things were not observed in 2019. And it was the norm, and then came the Bengal election in 2021. And these Bengal elections, BJP was looking to, again, winning with the same tactics, but they lost. And that has sent a kind of new message to India, and where, suddenly BJP is looking vulnerable. 5 states are going to, and how they managed the second COVID wave, where according to New York Times, like, the out estimate is that 4 million Indians died, but the true figure, obviously, the government is not saying anything on that. So we are in a very critical situation where there elections are due for 5 assembly seats next year. There is a fight within the BJP regarding the hardline RSS and the Modi Amit Shah team, which has been ruling since 2014, and which has been, RSS has been very happy with this team, but of late, especially after the Bengal defeat, doubts have emerged. Leaders of Modi and Shah, handpicked leaders by them, have been changed in many states, like Gujarat recently, and before that in Uttarakhand. And Uttar Pradesh, which is the largest, the politically most important state in India. So it is supposed to go to polls next year. I also come from Uttar Pradesh, where I run my Rashtravadi Kisan Kranti Dal, which is a Kisan party, and which is basically pitting 1857 nationalism against BJP nationalism. We don't call BJP a Hindu nationalist party, because we feel that it is not a Hindu nationalist party. The Hindu Sanatan Dharma, they have 4 Shankaracharyas, Dharma Gurus. These 4 Shankaracharyas have openly broken ranks with RSS and BJP, especially on 5th August 2020, when there was Shilanyas of the Ayodhya temple, and so it was slammed by Swami Sarupanand, who is the Shankaracharya of Badrinath and Dwarka, and he said that this is not an auspicious date to build the temple. Earlier also, Swami Sarupanand was in favor of settling this dispute since the days of Rajiv Gandhi, this dispute through talks and through mediation with Muslim leaders. He is the one who also fought the case, but the BJP always had a different line of confrontation and of provoking Muslims on this issue. So, these kind of fault lines have emerged. Then in Kashi, which is one of the holiest cities for Hindus, many temples have been broken, the BJP administration, and this is in the name of broadening avenues and reconstruction and beautifying the city. But the traditional Hindus have really condemned these acts, and the Dharma Gurus are up in arms, and there is definitely a cleavage. So India is seeing a very interesting three or 4-way cleavage right now. One is, of course, within the RSS BJP camp, there is a cleavage after Bengal, And after these, so many of these things which have happened, especially the conflict with Sanatan Dharma. And then there is a conflict with the Kisans, which is over the 3 farm laws, and which are meant to take away all the freedom enjoyed by the peasantry in India. And let me remind you, India got its independence through the fights of the peasantry. 1857, India's first war of independence, on which there is my book, War of Civilizations. That 1857 was basically a peasant war against British imperialism, and it was fought with an alliance with Sanatan Dharma, Islam. And I mean, and it is the peasantry of almost the same area which had arisen in, the areas which rose in rebellion in 1857. So right now also we have a situation where in arms over the 3 farm laws, and they have surrounded Delhi, and they are because Narendra Modi has, on the back of this Hindutva, which is very different from Hinduism, on the back of Hindutva, he has kind of he is propping up corporate interests. So people are seeing a parallel that time East India Company was there. Now there is West India Company, because most of the crony capitalists, Modi's friends, are from Gujarat, which is in West India. So this is the second cleavage, and then we have opposition versus BJP fight, and then we have like 1857 nationalists who are strongly against the BJP and who are trying to put a new narrative.
So this is all about your recent books you're talking about. And next, I would like to ask you, because the economy is in a bad shape at the moment, inflation and unemployment is increased. The foundation of social fiber and harmony has crumbled. What would be the future of India in these conditions?
Well, India was a major success story till 2014, and but since then the economy has stagnated. Then the 2 waves of COVID, it really brought down the Indian economy to like minus, into like negative growth from a high of which reached like 10% at one time in 2010 2011. And so there is this this whole then there was the demonetization which was unleashed by Mr. Narendra Modi in 2016, and so that has led to 2016 demonetization. That has led to a lot of job losses, closure of the MSME, the small scale entrepreneurs, and the collapse of India's cash economy, which was actually running the country, and which was actually the main reason behind India's growth. So that has been ruptured, and now this government is going in for privatization on a huge scale. They have grown up a whole plan to sell most of the public assets built since 1947 to Indian blood and toil. They are all being sold, and literally sold to private bidders. This move, which is going to take effect in the next 3 to 4 years, is going to create a lot of unrest. The peasantry is on the streets already, as I said. Now the unemployed youth, the working class, also hit the streets, and so we are in a situation where actually I think that till now we were seeing a kind of constitutional fascism, but now we might see an open fascism, because I don't see. I mean, this present government, it has no other means left to act, because even its policy of dividing Hindus and Muslims, it has reached a plateau. It's no longer working as Bengal showed. So it's not. I mean, it might work in one or two other elections, but one is sure whether this is going to work till 2024.
And Mr.
In dividing
Yeah,
the
yes, Mr. As you said, you're launching a new political party, especially starting from Uttar Pradesh. So people like you, there are there to safeguard the secular identity and constitution of India. So what else you can add to Hanif Bismi show audience about the future and about your people like you, what you people are going to do it to prevent this fascism is growing, fascism to be stopped?
Actually, we need to hit the streets, and Uttar Pradesh is going to see elections next year. And before that, my party is taking out Mangal Pandey, who was the hero of 1857 rebellion. He was a Brahmin Hindu, and
Yes,
he was
I
the
have seen the
original.
movie.
Yeah, there was a movie also, and I also wrote a book on it.
Yeah.
The movie is,
I saw the book about
Mangal
your book.
Pandey's story. Yeah, it's the Mangal Pandey story is about his friendship with a Muslim, but the movie changed it to a British guy, and it didn't do that well because I was involved, and then I wrote a book, in fact, against the movie where I highlighted the original story of Mangal Pandey. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that before UP election next year, Rashtrwadi Kisan Kranti Dal, my party, and Mangal Pandey Sena, there is a Mangal Pandey Sena which has been formed in favor to uphold the idea of 1857 nationalism. We are going to take out a major yatra in UP, which will be called Mangal Pandey Kisan Shaheed Gau Seva Yatra, and which will basically pit 1857 nationalism against Hindu fascism. And this yatra will start from Lucknow. It will go all through eastern UP, and then all through the areas where 1857 battles took place. And this yatra will revive the idea of the alliance of Sanatan Dharma and Islam. And by the way, there was a major Kisan Sammelan on 5th September in Muzaffarnagar, which is in UP. And it was in Muzaffarnagar that BJP had engineered riots in 2013, and it had broken the unity of the Jat peasants and Muslims. There were massive, huge riots, and 50,000 people were displaced, most of them Muslims. And that area had become, which is called the Western UP Belt, which was very active in 1857, and it was a strong pillar of Hindu-Muslim unity. But BJP had broken that unity, and BJP had swept election after election in that that area, 2014, 2017, 2019. But then the Kisan movement arose, and then the same Jats who are voting for BJP, the same Jat peasants, they now are at one with Muslims. That divide has been bridged, and which is actually a very emotional moment for us who believe in the 1857 line, that on 5th September this year, just this month, on 5th September, there was a Mahapanchayat in Muzaffarnagar, where Kisan Mahapanchayat, where Hindus gathered. There were like more than 10 to 15 lakh people. And the call was given of Allah Akbar and Har Har Mahadev. And this is after, this moment is very emotional. I mean, it is emotional for us because till now, after 1857 and what happened, and the British divided Hindus and Muslims, these two slogans were always at odds with each other, Allah Akbar, Har Har Mahadev. But in 1857, against British, there were fatwas of jihad and dharma yuddha. Hindus and Muslims, the Har Har Mahadev and Allah Akbar was a war cry, an anti-imperialist war cry against the British, against the joint Hindu-Muslim struggle. And so imagine 1857, and now on 5th September 2021, that slogan has been revived by the Indian Kisans. Areas where 1857. So this is a very positive
Okay,
event.
Okay, Mr. Misra. So, maybe running out of time now. So, hopefully, people like you and ideology, and we revive the secular identity and the cohesiveness of Hindu, Muslim, and other minorities in India, and make India back to the normal, what the constitution guarantees, and the vision of Mahatma Gandhi, a secular and peaceful India. And once again, on behalf of Hanif Bismi Show and the audience and 5 News Australia, we thank you for your time and your contribution. And hopefully, your party will have a strong foothold in the coming elections in UP. And hopefully,
Before the party, the yatra, this yatra which we are taking out, the Hindu Muslim unity,
yeah,
that is very
that's
critical.
what actually British feared, that the unity between
Yeah.
Hindu and Muslims, that's made the independence and things. So hopefully we hope and we pray for the unity, and we pray for the better outcome.